Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Dyesha Hall, and I'm going to be singing the national anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Good morning. I'm Michael Lindley, and I have the pleasure of being the chair of the Board of Trustees here at Lake Michigan College. Would you please join me in giving Lakeisha Hall a nice round of applause? Lakeisha is representative of the many fine students that we have here at Lake Michigan College. I want to thank you for joining us for the 23rd annual celebration. And I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce a few of my colleagues who have also joined us this morning. First of all, Miss Judy Truesdale. Mr. John Grover. And Miss Deborah Johnson. Trustees are elected to the board, and it is a volunteer position. And I really appreciate all the work that our colleagues on the board put in for Lake Michigan College students. This time, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Trevor Kubatzke, who is joining us in his first celebration here at Lake Michigan College for Martin Luther King. So, Dr. Kubatzke.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for making it through the snow and the wind, and I'd like to say that that's unusual, but this is my first winter in the area, and it seems like every day we get up and say, hey, it's snowing. So we're pleased to have you. It's my extreme pleasure to welcome you here this morning for such a wonderful, time-honored event. As this was approaching, as I was around the communities, throughout all communities I heard, oh, that's wonderful event. You know, it's an interesting thing. A news reporter asked me why we stay open on this day. And I said that the college is a facilitator for conversation. It brings people together to have important conversations around important topics. So we have to be open today to bring people together, not only to celebrate Dr. King, but to celebrate each other and celebrate our communities and what we do. So it's my honor to be here with you this morning for such a wonderful event. We have a couple people we'd like to recognize this morning. First, we are very pleased to have many of our previous award winners here. So as I call your name, please rise and hold applause till I've read all names. Mr. Brian Bennett, Judge Mabel Johnson Mayfield, Sister Paulita Walters, Larry and Sandy Feldman, and Reverend James Atterbury Sr. Let's give them a great round of applause. I'd also like to acknowledge our President Emeritus, Dr. Robert Harrison. And now it's my honor to introduce our Congressman, Fred Upton. Congressman Upton has served Michigan's 6th congressional district, which includes Berrien County since 1986. His top priorities remain job creation, economic growth, and working to help residents of Southwest Michigan live longer, better lives. He has been a good friend of the college and has consistently supported the particular program through his presence. Today again, Representative Upton joins us, and we are thankful for his presence. Please help me welcome Representative Fred Upton.
Of course, he knows better. It's Fred. Welcome, everyone. And, you know, as I thought about 23 years, thinking I've made it all but one. That's the day that President Obama took the oath of office. So for those of you that have been here that many times or your first one, welcome. This is part of my routine. And as people know, I usually start off, I'm sorry I have to leave early because part of my routine is I also have Kalamazoo events honoring this great man as well. So roads are a little bit worse. Sometimes I tell the sheriff patrol to, you know, I went the other way, but today I'm going to be going a lot slower than ever before to make sure that I get there safe and sound. Well, thanks, obviously, for being here today. We know why we're here. We're to celebrate the birthday of a great American, Dr. King. And every year on the third Monday of the month, this is the day that we as a nation celebrate this day. And while one man violently and tragically took Dr. King from us nearly 45 years ago, he could not silence his teachings nor his spirit. But both of those continue to shape our lives and our nation in so many wonderful ways. Dr. King's words bring us both comfort and hope, particularly as injustice, violence, despair seem to be staring us in the face wherever we turn on the TV, open the paper, or click on Twitter. And while we've made great strides as a country, overcoming many setbacks and bridging many divides, we still have, we know, many more to make. And this past year, even the past week, has certainly shown us that. So that's one of the reasons why that we're here, sit and reflect. And we can only face these challenges as one. We are blessed to live in a wonderful community, St. Joe Benton Harbor in Berrien County. It's important that we stick together. And just as I said hello to the folks greeting me at the door outside, they had some good posters, DACA and CHIP. We live by acronyms these days. But I hope that when I go back to Washington tomorrow, we can resolve both of these issues this week. In fact, as it relates to CHIP, the Children's Health Care Plan, I'm hoping that we were able to pass a 6-year bill this week that the President will sign that will include more money for community health centers. This is the extension of a bill that I actually led the fight for when I chaired the Energy and Commerce Committee 5 years ago. On DACA, I'll be seeing a number of DACA kids, I think, a little bit later this morning up in Kalamazoo. I met with a good number of them last week as well. We need to resolve this issue, and despite what was said last week, I'm hoping that maybe we can use that as a silver lining to force the issue and get it resolved perhaps as early as this week, by the end of the week. But we know that we've got a deadline that we have to meet, and I am part of that solution to get it done. So now I want to just touch on today's theme, the cost of silence. When I was thinking about that theme, I was reminded of a famous quote from Dr. King when he said, "People of goodwill, who are the vast majority, have the challenge to be open and honest and to turn a deaf ear to the shrill cries of the irresponsible few on the lunatic fringe." Now, I'm not going to name names when it comes to the lunatic fringe, but in every walk of life, whether it's work, family, or friends, or in a political education, or in any walk of life, we encounter those with beliefs that sometimes are very different from our own, and sometimes on a daily basis. And that's okay. That's okay, because it's that diversity that makes our nation and certainly our region great. And as one that listens to a lot of perspectives and a lot of different folks on virtually every issue, one voice that I've always listened to is a good friend and colleague who actually spoke from this same podium a number of years ago when he came to Benton Harbor to help with the Reverend Attenberry and others as we went through a very difficult time. My colleague John Lewis, who marched with Dr. King across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma on the day back in the 60s when, in fact, they were attacked by the Alabama National Guard. John Lewis still serves with me in the Congress. In fact, I gave him a handshake as I left the House floor on Thursday to come back. I've known him since we were sworn in together as part of our freshman class. As he has traveled here, I have been to Selma, where I co-chaired the pilgrimage as the Republican co-chair a number of times over the last couple of decades. He's a living legend, and he is the man of the highest character and moral values. Now, some of you may know that my wife has a master's in divinity, and she is the director of the adult education program in our church. And a few months ago, she organized an event at the church, Dialogue on Diversity, to help folks get a better understanding of not only how Congress works, but how public servants can stop bickering and work together. And it was John Lewis and me. And as I shared that stage with John, I said, I really don't want to speak. I really want to listen, because he is an icon to me as well. But what we spoke about in church was about what it means to be public servants, what it means to be dedicated to consensus building, what it means to be moving towards a common goal. And because of these turbulent times, the message today, the cost of silence, is very high. Dr. King knew that the cost of silence for him and his just cause of civil rights would be many. Many more years of oppressive living under the Jim Crow system in the South, and the racial divides much worse than what we know of today. Dr. King understood that the cost of silence was more about just him. It was about his life. It was about his wife, his kids. It was about his friends, his co-workers, and neighbors. For Dr. King, the cost of silence tore at his conscience. The cost of silence stirred his very soul. It's touched him in the deepest of possible ways until he could be silent no more. And so he took action. And as we know, the changes that Dr. King was able to implement didn't happen overnight. They didn't happen in a few weeks or months or even years. And they are issues that we continue to struggle with today, certainly last week, decades after his untimely death. But the cost of silence was so high that he simply didn't want to wait a second. You know, there's an old Upton family quote that my grandfather would always say, "Was you always perfect?" He wasn't an English major. He never went to college. But "was you always perfect" is a theme that often comes around our dinner table at a variety of different events. None of us are. None of us ever will be. Dr. King wasn't, and certainly I'm not either. But I implore you today not to be perfect, but to be engaged, to be kind to yourself and your neighbors, to be active in your community. And after all, Dr. King didn't tell us, he showed us. He walked that walk. The power of acting when the cost of silence becomes too much a burden to bear. So as we all go out in the world today, remember how powerful, how uplifting that can be to break that silence. And it's a tribute to this college that has educated so many kids. I say kids, but students, young men and women. that sets a marker for the rest of us, the community, to follow. So I'm been most impressed with the board, with the action, and I'm delighted to again participate to kick off what should be a pretty marvelous day, setting the stage for the country as we think about the issues that confront all of us as a nation. God bless you all, and drive slow.
We're so glad to be here today with you on this special occasion. We're All God's Children Choir, and this is our teen ensemble. We are not known for staying silent. And the teens are singing a song today for you that was written by Matisyahu and Bruno Mars. And there's a message for all of us in one day. As we go into our 19th year, we're proud to be part of this meaningful occasion. And so the director for one day will be Hercel Cole, who's been with us from the very beginning, and will be accompanied for this song by Larry Feldman, who's also been with us since the beginning. One day.
Sometimes I lay under the moon and thank God I'm breathing. Then I pray, don't take me soon, 'cause I'm here for a reason.
Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. 'Cause when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around. Because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't wanna fight no more. There'll be no more wars, and our children will play.
One day,
One day, one
one
day,
day, one day,
one day,
one day. It's not about a win or lose. We all lose when we feed on the souls of the innocent. Blood-drenched pavement, keep on moving, though the waters stay raging. In this maze, you can lose your way.
your way.
It might drive you crazy, but don't let it phase you, no way.
No way. Sometimes in my tears I drown,
I
but I
drown,
never let it get me down.
me
'Cause when
down,
negativity surrounds,
surround.
I know someday it'll all turn around. Because
All my life
I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say
that we
don't wanna fight no more. There'll be no more wars, and our children will play.
one day,
One day, one
one
day,
day, one day,
one
one day.
See, this all will change, treat people the same. Stop with the violence, down with the hate. One day we'll all be free and proud to be under the same song, singing songs of freedom like
One day,
one day, one
one
day,
day, one day,
one day, one day.
all my life
I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't wanna fight no more. There'll be no more wars, and our children will play.
one day,
One day, one
Thank you, teens. Thank you, herself. We have some of our alumna in the audience today. We're really proud to welcome Noreen Walls back from 2 years in the Peace Corps in Africa. And we're also excited, one of our dads is now joining us as an accompanist, Mike Struan, but he had a compulsory meeting of educators this morning and couldn't be with us. And at last minute's notice, Gretchen Oman, who's been with us since she designed our original rainbow t-shirts 19 years ago, has picked up the guitar to be with Larry as our accompanist. And will be directed by Courtney Moore. Courtney was our first soloist as a little girl when the choir began. And now Courtney's son is in the choir to watch his mom direct us on a medley, Welcome Table and This Little Light.
Table.
wish I had their voice today. And I also wish I had their energy. Thank you all, God's children, Community Choir, for providing an inspiring opening for the college's annual Martin Luther King Jr. Breakfast Celebration for 2018. As was mentioned earlier, choir founders Larry and Sandy Feldman were recipients of the 2008 Lake Michigan College Diversity Award. So good morning and welcome. That's about a C. Good morning and welcome. Good morning. And welcome. How was that, Mom? You know, Mom was a school teacher, so, you know, she knows what responses are supposed to be like. I'm Danny Sledge, diversity consultant with Lake Michigan College, and as has become our tradition, we gather once again to recognize, remember, and celebrate the life and legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. It's my honor and pleasure to once again serve as your Master of Ceremonies for this year's MLK Recognition and Celebration Breakfast Program. There's a quote that says, "Change is inevitable, growth is optional." I'm certain we can all agree that 2017 was a year of significant change. Our response to the change, however, is more important than the change itself. Today, I'm pleased that as elements of the change may appear to threaten some of the advances we've made as it relates to social justice, that we've committed to assemble once again to give homage, thanks, and appreciation to a man who epitomized the best in respect for all humanity and the concepts of social justice and equality, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Succinctly, our response to the change that is threatening is that we will not forget what has been done. We shall not forget or minimize what has been accomplished, and we're committed to and recognize that there is still much work left to do. So while the change is inevitable, growth, or our response to the change, is truly optional. We will continue to work, to grow, to thrive, to overcome, because that's the choice we make. So let's celebrate. Thank you.
Good morning again. As president of the college, I get to do a lot of very wonderful things, and this is one of those. I am honored to introduce our keynote speaker this morning, Dr. Rufus Glasper. Dr. Glasper is the president and CEO of the League of Innovation in Community College, an international nonprofit organization dedicated to catalyzing the community college movement. In its continuing effort to make a positive difference for students and communities, the League is dedicated to improving student and organizational learning through innovation, experimentation, and institutional transformation. Dr. Glasper is also Chancellor Emeritus of the Maricopa Community Colleges, one of the nation's largest college community systems in the United States. He served as Chancellor from 2003 through February of 2016 and previously held district leadership positions for more than 2 decades. Dr. Glasper's leadership roles and many honors are highlighted in your program. But what you will not see in your program is Dr. Glasper's leadership in training today's and tomorrow's leaders in community colleges. The League of Innovation has an event called Executive Leadership Institute, and I had the pleasure of attending some 6 years ago, and Dr. Glasper was a key participant in that. Around the United States, there are presidents, vice presidents at community colleges who have benefited from Dr. Glasper's leadership, and I am honored to be one of those. So without further ado, please help me welcome Dr. Rufus Glasper.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kubatzke. Good morning. You know, it is a pleasure to be here in snowy Michigan. I went to Arizona in 1986, and when I was on my way to Arizona, they told me it was a dry heat. Folks, it's hot in Arizona. At 120 degrees, it's still hot. And when I came here, I haven't been here in a while, and I wanted to just thank all of you, the students, faculty, and staff, the leadership and the board, and the community, for inviting me to come and speak with you today. Before I get started, the first surprise that I had when I walked in the door is that I have two of my aunts who are in the room today. We used to grow up together in Saginaw, Michigan, and I have my Aunt Olee Robinson and my Aunt Oretha McKnight. Can you give them a hand, please? So it was a surprise to see them. But I was asked this morning, I was shared this morning that I accepted this invitation to come rather quickly. In 1959, my grandparents decided that they wanted to buy a farm. And they bought that farm about 24 miles away, about 18 miles away, about 24 minutes in Covert, Michigan. So I spent a lot of time driving these roads, riding in these roads, picking grapes, picking apples. My mom called it a summer vacation. I remember my grandmother asking me and my brothers, a family of 7, would you go out and get that switch and come back here? You remember those times when you used to cut your own switch? Well, I lived it here in Covert. Many of my family grew up and lived here and died here. My grandmother actually passed away in the hospital in Benton Harbor in 1977. We have a lot of family in the area. I don't visit as frequently, but part of this is my history. In 1986, I went to Phoenix, having served as the Department Director for Financial Planning and Budgeting for the Chicago Public Schools. And I went to Phoenix because I was still on a journey of serving students. I went from a K-12 system to a community college system. I want to share some of that journey with you today, but I want to do that in the context of this year's theme, the cost of silence. We all know it's a reference to Martin Luther King's famous quotation about the problem with appalling silence of the good people as it relates to the Vietnam War and the potential cost of promoting peace or social action that continues to resonate the same today as it did in 1967. In fact, in today's political climate, even companies, CEOs, are starting to assert themselves, regardless of what some of the outcomes might be when you engage those who are in government or engage those who are trying to suppress many that are around us. We can't sit on the sidelines. You've heard that earlier. My comments will be no different this morning. but they will be grounded in the path that I took to where I am today. In 2014, Front Doors News in Arizona featured me in an article entitled "Book Smart, Street Smart," stating that I always had an appetite to learn and a heart to teach, but that my path was far from easy and not without risk, failure, and they describe it as ultimately success. As I look back on my journey, and specifically the times when I calculated whether it pays to stay silent or speak up, I do not regret the decisions that I made to advance my individual position, the position of the institution that I work for, or the students of which we were all working for at the time and continue for the rest of my life. Because silence places us in the middle, and this default position is getting crowded. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. chose the Vietnam War as a time to break the silence, and his speech became his vision for world peace. When I left Chicago in 1970, I attended a small college in northeastern Iowa. I was the first in my family to attend college, a first-gen college student, terms we use quite frequently in today's environment. I was seeking to make my parents proud, and I was also somewhat naive. I was one of 49 African American students on a college campus of 2,100. I was a football jock in high school, wanted to go to one of the state schools in Illinois. Some were described as party schools, and my parents really weren't sure. So when my coach says, "How about coming to Iowa, and we can provide him with a scholarship, we can provide him with some aid," and the cost of education became more affordable. So I went to this college, drove 6 hours away, and I noticed that it was different than Michigan or different than Chicago, and that I was one of few and not one of many. I went to class, I studied, I took my tests, and most grades I received were A's and B's. But in this one class, regardless of how much I studied, I could never get above a C. When I questioned the professor, I was informed that my background suggested that I could not really understand the subject matter. So based on her perceived preconception or preconceived notion, she limited letter grades to no higher than a C for those who she described as you people. In my past discussion with teachers, I had never received criticism shrouded in ill will and racism. You students. The class happened to be religion in the Western world. And when she said that I didn't understand, then I immediately said, "I would like to put you on the phone with Deacon Glasper and Mother Glasper and see if they would agree with your assessment." But I was raised to be polite. I was angry, spoke to administration, but I was informed that the professor was a good person and that her decisions were based on long-standing teaching practices and her tenured assessment of quality responses. And yet, my study partner, who was a football player that I studied with every night, who was not black, received an A. After speaking with other black students, it was obvious that institutional racism was occurring and that only folks of my color consistently received lower grades. I tried for weeks to correct the practice as it related to me, but each day I became aware of the pervasiveness across the college campus. Together, we, the affected students, had identified a pressing social issue of concern, and we needed to find a way out. We needed a way to break the silence. In this instance, in this injustice, we were left with no other choice but to approach the college administration and demand equal rights and grades based on merit and not the color of our skin. The aims of integration are noteworthy, but as Dr. King stated in his Beyond Vietnam speech, even when pressed by the demands of seeking economic, political, and social equity, we should not assume that the task of opposing administration or government policies will come easy. After further deliberation, a collective few decided that we could not sit idly in our classes and ignore what was happening across the college. Again, as Dr. King said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We chose to move beyond prophesizing about the hiring of Black history professors and equal treatment in grading to asking critical questions regarding the impact of racism on the students, the college, and the community. We were forced to develop our own stand on the possibility of equal treatment and on the timely completion of a bachelor's degree. Our actions included one-on-one meetings with the dean and the college administration in their offices. When that didn't work, we invited them over to at that time it was called the Black Student Union or the Black House. We invited them there on our turf to talk about the changes that needed to be done. They were open-minded to listen, reluctant to make change. We discussed, we tried to compromise, and there was no movement forward. After about 8 hours, a decision had to be made. There were about 15 of us out of that 49. And one senior, I was a sophomore, one senior decided that we could not let this day pass. When they got up to leave, we blocked the door. We forced them to stay, to deliberate, to try and reach a solution. They honored our request and did not force themselves out the door, but they listened. And for a day and a half, we continued to discuss. We made national news. I remember talking to my mom, and she said, "Boy, what the hell are you doing?" We sent you up here to get an education, and you're showing out. That day, we decided that our future and the future of others was in our hands. And to walk away from that institution and not have a degree would have set us all back for many years. In the end, we felt we were successful. For that semester, all grades were guaranteed at a level no lower than a C for all students on campus, and many chose a pass-fail option, so it wouldn't affect their grade point average. However, if your grade was an A or B, you would receive the higher grade. But let me tell you about the long-term consequences. My wife and I have gone back to visit on a number of occasions. By the time we left, in 4 years, we had a degree. And I felt that I could survive anywhere in the world with that education. I've gone back in 19 97, things had changed. But let me just move back a little further than that. By the time I graduated, I was a junior, and I had decided that I wanted to write my senior paper on Booker T. Washington's Economic Aspects of Financing Tuskegee Institute. My advisor, who I had since freshman, says, "Why in the world would you like to write your dissertation on this? It doesn't make any sense to me." So I fought for a semester to write my dissertation. Excuse me, not my dissertation, my senior paper. And I got a chance to do that. I graduated. And after I graduated, I went to work in a public school system that I graduated from high school. I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a coach. And I started working in the business office that summer and had worked there for 2 summers earlier. And during that period of time, my boss knew me as a good person, and I asked him to get my credentials from my college. Same college I had issues with the teacher. And in it said, "I am glad that Rufus has decided to teach in the inner city schools of Chicago because I doubt if he would ever make it in this highly competitive business world." Needless to say that I was angry again. I went home to my prospective wife and I said that this person does not know me. I thought that he was supporting me this time and continuing to profile me in a way that they really don't know who I am. So I made a change that day in 1974 to move on the business side of the house and not teach. I made it a point to put my business acumen forward. For 20 years, out of anger, I moved from a bachelor's degree to being in charge of the financial planning and budgeting for the Chicago Public Schools with 600,000 students, 43,000 employees, a $2 billion budget at the age of 28. I moved on at Luther, my college, in 1997, gave me an award for being an outstanding alumni. Today I stand before you with a bachelor's degree, a PhD, and a CPA. The Maricopa Community Colleges, when I left, had served 275,000 students at its high point. The Maricopa Community Colleges, when I left, had a AAA bond rating from all 3 houses and have maintained it for 9 years. When I left, we were dealing with issues that included deferred action for childhood arrival. In 2011, we implemented the policies in Arizona, the Senate bills and the House bills around social justice in DACA, and our enrollment dropped 15,000 students in 1 semester. Today, only 2,500 of those students have returned. 2,500. We have individuals across our country that are forcing us to not be silent. In 2007, I sat in my office as a chancellor. My phone went off, beepers went off, and we were raided in 6 colleges by a sheriff in Arizona who has his inmates wear pink underwear. Many of you probably know that individual. His name is looked at for running for president. And I bring this up because all of my data was taken. I made the headlines of the newspaper that there is something going on in the Maricopa colleges, and it starts at the top. I made the front page of the newspaper. It was investigated for 8 years. In that 8th year, in the back of the newspaper next to the obituaries, it said nothing was ever found. When we think about not being silent, when we think about our journeys over the past, I found that I had to stop being angry, to refocus my thinking, stop being silent in ways that people expected you to be silent. But I needed to lead from a different path. I needed to continue to lead by example. And I felt that for my sake and for that of my fellow students and for the sake of those who follow, that we could not be silent. My journey has been only a microcosm of Martin Luther King, but in his Beyond Vietnam speech, A Time to Break Silence, he stated, "We were convinced that we could not limit our vision nor opportunities to certain rights for black people, but instead affirm the conviction that America would never be free or saved from itself unless the descendants of the slaves were loosened completely from the shackles they still wear." We still wear shackles. We still wear shackles today. Appointed as the chancellor of the Maricopa system in 2003, I was approached and said, "As the black chancellor, what are you going to do?" On many occasions, I cited that I am the chancellor who happens to be black. I had many individuals come into my office and sit at my table and say that you should not be here. Someone else should be in this role. Equity and civil rights is not limited to the color of our skin. DACA is one of the issues that we are dealing with today. But as you note within our environment, there are issues each and every day. It's not how we address the issues in 1974 versus 2018, but it's what lessons have we learned and what type of teachers have we been to those who follow. Over the years, I have been asked on many occasions, why do you do what you do? Because it's been stated many times, if not me, then who? If not you, then who? If you aren't going to be an example, step aside. I was asked in 2014 by the Arizona Business Leaders publication that if you could have dinner with anyone in the world, living or dead, but not related to you, who would that person be and why would you pick that person? I picked Martin Luther King Jr. Because each and every day that I read something, that I share something, it reminds me of where we are today and how hard he pushed in order to move all of us collectively moving forward. I want to share with you one of the items that I wrote during those times that I was addressing what some call racism, I learned respect. I learned how to keep my mouth closed. I learned how to call people Mr. because I did not want to respect them in the role that I had. I didn't want to let my guard down for those who would follow in this position. Because if I were to walk away from that role that I had, regardless of what the issue was, there would never be anyone else to follow. At least be treated differently than I would be treated. So I would write. And one of the things that I wrote was called From Denial to Commitment. And I want to share that with you. From denial to commitment. We live day by day in a crisis of change. We refute, yet support the denial of reality. We exalt at the idea of being different, a diversity of existence. We develop maze ways to provide deception for our quest. We take a risk and conquer the challenge. We now have control. We seek the recognition, the commitment we ignore. We know the mission, we see the vision, but we lack the purpose. We know the mission, we seek the vision, but we lack the purpose. We evolve from the pyramid to the circle. We thrive to enhance our participation and involvement, but we fail to make a choice. We fake it until we make it. We are like all the rest, but in resistance, we listen. For those of you who get angry, for those of you who follow the path of others, put your anger to a purpose, measure your anger, continue to move beyond the day that you have today because there is a day tomorrow. Understand that those around you need you. Understand that without your voice, without gatherings like this, there will be no change. Be silent when it matters to be silent. Be vocal when you have to make a difference. I took that path in the mid-'70s. I take that path every day. And before it's done, before I leave this earth, I will not go silent into the night. Best wishes, God bless, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Glasper, for your remarks. Thank you for sharing your story. We're grateful, I dare say even blessed, by your presence and insightful commentary. Can we show our appreciation? How many of you are in the middle of or getting over some sort of cold or respiratory thing? As a student development professional and practitioner for 40 years, I'm always encouraged by and supportive of students having the opportunity to participate in events such as this. Therefore, I'm enthused that the next participants in this morning celebration are two Lake Michigan College students, Dyesha Hall, who we've had the honor of hearing at the beginning of this celebration, and Kenneth Jackson. Dyesha is a pre-nursing major, and Kenneth is a music major. And they will be performing two selections, You Still Love Me and Happy. Dyesha Hall, and Kenneth Jackson.
You make me happy. You make me whole. You take the pain away. I'm so in love with you. You make me happy. You make me whole. You take the pain away. I'm so in love with you. And everything about you is right. It covers all my wrong. Your life saved my life. And everything about you is right. It covers all my wrong. Your life saved my life. With you is where I belong. I belong to you, Lord. I belong to you, Lord. I belong to you, Lord. I'm so in love with you. I can't make it without you. I live to worship you. Forever me and you. I'm so in love with you. I can't make it without you. I live to worship you. Forever me and you. Forever me and you. Forever me and you. Forever me and you. And everything about you is right. Why do we do the things we do when it hurts you? I'll never understand why. We're at a place in our lives when we're tired of all the lies and the pain we feel inside. We gotta make it right. I have nothing else to give except my life. Please accept this offering. I present my body, my sacrifice, holy. Hey, yeah. I'm running back to you with my hands lifted high. Lord, I give you my heart and I give you my life. I don't mean to be emotional, but sometimes I cry when I think of all the pain that I caused you inside. But you still love me. Oh, you still love me. Seven times 70, you forgive me, and you do this daily. I never want to take advantage of your grace and the sacrifice you made. I gotta make it right. I have nothing else to give except my life. Please accept this offering. I present my body, my sacrifice, holy. Hey, yeah. I'm running back to you with my hands lifted high. Lord, I give you my heart and I give you my life. I don't mean to be emotional, but sometimes I cry when I think of all the pain that I caused you inside, but you still love me. Oh, you still love me. Your love is unbelievable. Your love is so amazing. Your love is unconditional. Oh, you say your love is unbelievable. Your love is so amazing. Your love is unconditional. And at the end of the day, He loves me. At the end of the day, at the end of your day, He loves me, yeah. At the end of the day, at the end of the day, He loves me. And I don't mean to be emotional, but sometimes I cry when I think of all the pain that I caused you inside. I don't mean to be emotional, but it makes me cry when I think of all the pain that I caused you inside, but you still love me.
Wonderful. I don't want to be emotional, but sometimes I cry when I think about the fact that whatever I go through, He still loves me. He still loves me. I was excited to once again participate as a judge for the LMC MLK Student Essay Contest. Since its inception, our students have presented insightful responses to the celebration theme. This year, students were asked to respond to the theme, The Cost of Silence, using the following essay prompt. In the United States, freedom of speech and expression is strongly protected from government restrictions by the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. Many state constitutions and state and federal laws. While the Constitution grants this right to free speech, many may feel restricted because of the repercussions that may result in exercising this right. In 1965, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was engaged in a battle with his Sheriff Jim Clark over voting rights and voting registration in Selma, Alabama. On March 8, 1965, Dr. King spoke from the pulpit on the subject of courage. I quote, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter," end quote. Dr. King was implying that we each have a personal moral obligation to be courageous and to use our voice, our right, to express our feelings and opinions about things that matter. In this case, with Dr. King, it was injustice and discrimination. If we choose to remain silent, he states, that our psyche, our human mind, soul, and spirit begin to die. Now I'd like to present our first place recipient for the 2018 MLK Essay Contest, and that is in the person of Jamia Timmons. Please welcome Jamia.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It's Jamia. It's okay. The cost of silence is a detriment that none of us can afford. It mutes our expression and articulation, which we've been blessed with. In this world, we have two weaknesses: failure induced by fear and ignorance. To cease fear of standing up and voicing a positive opinion and advocating for others when called upon would be the remedy to those weaknesses. For example, if those around you were being treated unfairly, turning a blind eye would be unthinkable. The uncultivated frame of mind that has no interest in educating oneself on social injustice The uncultivated frame of mind that has no interest in educating oneself is a tragedy to the progress of our society. So just imagine the real cost of silence. Dr. King said, there comes a time when silence is betrayal. Failure to speak out on injustice and immoral conditions is and will always be unethical. As a result of quietness, slavery existed in the U.S. for 245 years, roughly. Because of silence, some Americans still endure the hardships of racism, sexism, social injustice, poverty, and police brutality. Dr. King also stated, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Okay, let's see if I can move this. If we truly want to live out King's dream, we must care. Why don't we care about the killings of black men caused by police exceeding the probability of a white man being killed nearly 3 times over? Why don't we care that women are paid 79 cents to every dollar their male coworkers make in the workplace? Why don't we care about the education of rural and urban youth? Dr. King envisioned and dedicated his life to equality for all and used his voice to empower those who were powerless. It's obvious we cannot allow negative voices to lead the world. It will only improve when we come together and make a difference. I, along with the rest of this nation, witnessed the first election of the first black president. Yet, it isn't enough. There are still issues we must address and solve. The first step would be to break the silence, promote positivity, and explore diversity in every possible way. We can't thrive on oppression or apology. We need awareness and prevention. It's so easy to write an empowering message on Facebook, but what about actually meaning it and acting on it? Would you stand up for someone who's being treated unfairly? Would you befriend someone and support someone from a different culture or background? Ask yourself, why is silence betrayal? Think about how it affects everyone and everything. Then you can create all the possible solutions you can create. Then explore all the possible solutions you can create when you break your silence. Like the leaders before us, we must unite and support one another. We need solutions, and that requires breaking the barrier of silence, developing sincere intentions. Our history has so many moments when we as people paid a high price for our silence, and that continues to linger in our present and our future. Never let hate override and dissolve your good judgment. Be aware of your own privileges and biases, and never ignore the necessary rights of others. We are all human, and every life and voice matters. Thank you.
You thought we'd let you get away, huh? All right.
Thank
Glad
you.
to present that to you.
Thank you so
You want
much.
to take a picture?
Okay. Thank you.
The runner-up for this year's contest is Dyesha Moore. Dyesha is a dual-enrolled student at Lake Michigan College and Benton Harbor High School. Dyesha?
Hello, everyone. I would be foolish to say that I'm not nervous. But I'm thankful to be able to say the speech to all of you. When I saw the poster hanging on the wall, I immediately stopped. You know how you have one of those freeze moments and you have to backtrack? I literally just froze. And I said, I've got to do this. I immediately went to the office and signed up. And so the poem I've come up with today goes hand in hand with the theme. My poem is called The Cost of Silence. There is power in every syllable we utter from our mouths, the power to impact, unite, rectify, and empower those around us. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "Our lives begin to end the very day we become silent about things that matter." We allow others to beat, batter, and diminish our worth with their tongue lashing fiery words, imprinting themselves upon us like a burden we must now carry. Yet we silence our own tongue, refraining to speak out against this bind society has held in us since birth. What is the cost of our silence? We lose the power we once felt burning in our bellies, beating in our hearts, racing through our very minds. They have dictated, manipulated, and contorted our minds to believe that we cannot be better than an average white male. Many people do not understand the great gift that God has given to them, the opportunity to speak out against discrimination, exploitation, delinquency, and extortion. A young girl, barely 9 years old, is raped and beaten by her drunk father almost every night. She has become so broken and hollow on the inside that she refuses to speak. School is her church, her sanctuary, and she prays that someone will notice. But notice what? What is different about this silent girl with no smile? The girl that simply nods and never gets upset. The girl that sits in her seat at the front of the class, praying the teacher will see the pain and suffering etched into her soul. The girl with no voice. The girl with no escape from her torment. Her name is silence. We become this little girl every day we view the corrupt and unjust acts of the world and do nothing. Every day we choose to ignore the innocent black men being murdered in cold blood. Is there no justice? Who will speak out against this open torment? African Americans have tried so hard to break free from the false idea of white supremacy that once we had just a taste of the blissful freedom we craved, we became silent. We no longer paid mind to the racism stirring around us. We became silent towards one another, thinking the other to have ill intent. Do you not see? Are you so blind as to become this little girl with no voice? Silence is not an option. The government slithers like the cunning snake in the Garden of Eden, whispering false words into our ears. It burns my heart to see that we give in like the innocent blind Eve. Why did we not call out to our Father? Why do we not seek guidance from those before us? The elders of our generation can see the turn of corruption, yet they too remain silent. You ask why? Why would they be silent, knowing our impending demise? We have turned our backs to them. They watch us grow silent towards one another. They see us become silent towards one another, and they shake their heads in disapproval. We are all we have left in a country running wild with racism in every crack and crevice. From rich to poor, we are being judged for the pigment of our skin, and nobody will speak out. Day in and day out, we carry on with our lives as if our children aren't disappearing, as if our husbands aren't being held prisoner in foreign countries, as if my brothers aren't being shot before my eyes for raising their hands. We stay silent about the many influential black males they continue to imprison with no evidence. If you do not understand the words I'm saying to you, then please understand this. Every time we start to utter a word against the treachery being done to us, they try to bind us. They try to lock us away so that nobody will dare to glance your way and hear what you have to say. They want to silence our voices in fear that others will notice that we will no longer accept the condition that America has bound us by. My response to this folly, this foolishness that has been put before me, is to lash out using the very fire that they hope to annihilate and dismantle. I refuse to stay silent and let them try to tell me what I can and can't be. How dare I allow them to dictate how successful I will be? How dare I allow the teacher to keep my sister at a third grade mentality? How dare I allow them to lock up my uncle and throw away the key 100 miles away from the crime scene? How dare I? The question was asked of me, what would I do if I was mute? My response to this is simple. I will take my pen to the pad and keep writing until my hands grow old and weary. My voice will ring through every letter printed on those dull pages. I will not be silent any longer. I will not stop until my brothers and sisters heed the words I'm saying to you. So I ask you today, ladies and gentlemen, what is the cost of your silence?
You know, when the young people come on the stage, I just say a word to them like breathe or relax or whatever. And I think I told Dyesha, I think I told her to relax, and she told me something like, I got this. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. At this time, I'd like to invite Dr. Kubatzke and Dr. Lindley to the podium to present the 2018 LMC Diversity Award.
Each year, Lake Michigan College Board of Trustees determine the recipient of the Martin Luther King Jr. Diversity Award. The announcement is made to the community at the college's annual Martin Luther King Jr. breakfast. Retired Michigan State Trooper Maurice Burton is this year's awardee. Trooper Burton is the epitome of a servant leader. Whether coaching a local track team or providing youth leadership opportunities, he has earned numerous awards during his illustrious career. In addition to a 31-year career as a trooper, including being named Trooper of the Year in 1997, the first African American to receive this award, Mr. Burton has devoted his adult life to opening communication with area youth. He is one of the founding members of the Benton Harbor Boys and Girls Club. In addition, each summer he runs a summer camp, Hours of Power, and takes a group of area youth to the Michigan Youth Leadership Academy, where participants develop leadership skills and build positive relationships. He has also worked with youth as a co-pastor of the Refreshing Fountains Church. Burton organized the Ministerial Alliance crime-fighting efforts at the time where tensions were high in Benton Harbor. He started career days at the Benton Harbor High School and Junior High, block clubs, and school safety task force. In addition, he coordinated a police awareness day and developed sensitivity training for Michigan State Police working in Benton Harbor. Please welcome to the stage the 2018 recipient of the Lake Michigan College Diversity Award, Maurice Burton.
Thank you. Just getting back from Africa, and the words thank you is asante in Swahili, and the return is karibu. And I tell you, I was inspired hearing that young lady talk about the cost of silence. And in my call, it started back in 1997 when we had the highest murder rate in Benton Harbor, and the state police was called into play. And my captain by the name of Richard Dragamer asked, Trooper Burton, you're from Benton Harbor. What do you think we should do? And it seemed like a light from heaven said, ah, it's your turn to speak. And I tell you, he inspired me to go forth along with the support of the community and staff and the people in the community here, and most of all with the support of my wife that allowed me a lot of times when, I wanted to just shut down. She encouraged me to go head on and continue to fight, but I always look at the children. And one thing I didn't want to do was get involved with politics, so I kept the children in sight because I was brought up in a way that my parents told me that in the scripture, and I read for myself, who's the greatest among you? And Jesus brought the little child and said, they are the greatest. Except we become as one of them, we shall no wise enter therein. And I thank the Lord for allowing me this opportunity and this chance, and I'd like to thank the board for electing me to have this. I feel humbled, and Mr. Sledge, I've been knowing him. He's one of those guys, I tell you what about him. He's a little older, but it was always something in the community. We always looked up to our older ones because they were path blazers, and he was one of those path blazers when I was growing up. So I always looked up to Mr. Sledge, and we have a silence that we cannot be quiet anymore. We can't sit still anymore. And whatever your hands find to do, which is good, you do that. And don't worry about what someone else will say. But I just feel honored and privileged for the award today, and thank you very much. And in the words of Swahili is asante sana. Thank you.
You never know who's watching you when you're growing up. You never know. You never know. We're nearing the close of this annual event, and on behalf of the college, thank you for your attendance. Our sincere hope is that something you've experienced this morning will inspire you to use your voice, to not remain silent. It has truly been my pleasure to serve in this capacity for this morning's celebration program. Remember, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Speak up, choose life, and have a blessed day.